I wanted to just say there's just been a lot of talk about like all the things I'm not doing and accountability and accepting responsibility. And it's funny because there's a bunch of people out there who talk about doing that. And it's that they're like, oh, this is what someone has to do. But that's it's just a concept to them. Like they're not being asked to accept responsibility or take accountability of anything they've done, like in any real way at the time. They're just pontificating about it, and that's fine for people to do. But people want like an instant result, and they want all of this stuff to have its like the whole story play out. But the story is not so quick, and the telling of the story doesn't get to be fast because we're on a government timetable. It's not mine. And so it's like people I got phone calls the day after I was arrested that said, plea out, go to rehab and plea out this week. And I'm like, you can't even do that. Like you're not going to get the county attorney here to have a plea offer ready, and you're not going to negotiate one out in a week on this case. You're just not. You could in, New York or LA or Chicago or a large jurisdiction where they handle a bunch of drug cases. But out here, they're like, for reference, my case number is 341. That means in Candy, Ohio County in 2024, my case on May 23rd, was the 341st case in the county. All right? That's how the numbering scheme goes. The 341st case. That's not a lot of crime. Right? That's 5 months into the year, they have 340 cases. Now, if you contrast that with someone who's charged with something up in St. Cloud, for example, who just had a hearing, his case number is 6910. Now, granted, there's several months of time between those two charges. You go from May to August. But that's 3 more months. And we're almost 7,000 cases in that county versus 340 cases in mine. And if the progression is linear, it would have been around 700 to 800 cases in my county. Actually, if you look at April's case, you can find out kind of that linear progression of case numbers that they've had. Whereas the other one is significantly higher. Different counties have different ways of dealing things. Just weren't going to get through that case in a week. It wasn't going to happen. They don't have the same machine. That being said, the other part of that was people said, go to rehab. Check yourself into rehab. And people wanted me to go to inpatient rehab to do 6 weeks, 8 weeks, something like that. And they're like, that'll be good. And that's not how rehab works. It's also not how the law works. And it wouldn't have made any sense to do so. It's like you're watching TV or something. And someone's like, just go. You just go. Like, you have to have a diagnosis, typically. Now, if you're rich and a celebrity, you can go to rehab, and that rehab is basically a really nice detox resort. Sure, they have all of that stuff. But real people who have real problems and real court cases, like, you don't just go, I'm going to just run and I'll just check myself into rehab. Like 6 weeks, 8 weeks, who cares? Like, I'll just be in there. You can't just do that. And pile that on with, we had a family law case going with our kids involved. Like, we couldn't be gone for 6 to 8 weeks. They needed us here. They needed us to do various things and meet various goals to go ahead and resolve that. The practicality of law and the criminal justice system is so much different than the impact people seem to give it. And it clashes it clashes heavily with their expectations and their desires for a quickly resolved story. But unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, buckle up. The story's got a long way to go. KCP says he's drunk. Guys, I have almost daily urinalysis tests going back to June. I can't drink. It's not like, again, it's not like you can just, you can just go cheat them. No, they're randomized. But, daily, that must be outrageously expensive. Okay, so, yeah. Here's the thing. It's almost like I know how the county system works, right? So people were mad at me, not mad at me, I don't know. People were critical of me posting bond. Now, of course, I wanted to post bond. My bond was $5,000. And as people have told me I'm so dumb for doing this. But again, they don't realize the timeline we're on or anything like that. The idea was that I knew I didn't want to have to pay. If you're charged by the state of Minnesota with a drug or alcohol related crime, you have to pay for any testing that's done. Okay? So I posted bond, knowing that I would have to pay for all of the testing. Got rid of that. There's no testing because there's no conditions. However, in our family law case, with the kids and all that shit, they put restrictions on us and they did the testing. But when the county does the testing for family services, they have to pay because it's not criminal court and they don't, part of their reduced expectations, like it's a huge infringement into your life and your liberty. And you have an inherent right to parent your children. And the state is reaching in and stopping that and intervening there. Part of the exchange of that is they have to pay for the testing that they want to do. So to let you know how much it costs is every time you take a P test, it is $75. I know this because I have had to pay for several of them that we did voluntarily for various reasons at various points during these cases. Don't worry about it, but it's $75 a shot. If I would have had to be paying $75 a shot on every test coming up through here, I think I'm already past $5,000 based on how many tests I've done. And we're not even close. Like, if I win at Omnibus, it'll be done. And that's great. If I don't win at Omnibus, if we don't get our Franks hearing and we push towards going to trial, that's not going to be until December, January, maybe even February of next year. And those restrictions are going to stay, or would in theory stay in place. Now, obviously, I'm on unconditional bond, so eventually it's possible that I will not have a restriction. We'll see. But in the meanwhile, still on the old monitoring. You can't afford it. No one can afford this shit. And it's brutal. It's really brutal on people who are indigent. It's really brutal on people who make middle class incomes. Because they don't have the resources to keep the fight going. To see the system applied towards people who don't have any resources to fight is awful. And that's every guy I was sitting next to in recovery. Like they don't know their basic rights. They don't know that when, it's interesting to see, but they don't know that when family services tells you to do something, you could say no.